Start. Okay. Hashem. So, Ari's here. Maybe Koach will show up. And I see somebody's watching. It's either Yael, I'm assuming, Yael, Zahava. And, or Chaya, or... there we go. It's Katie. Katie is watching. So, Bezat Hashem, we're going to dedicate the class, I think, until we finish this lesson. This Torah, I mean. Torah Hey will dedicate the class to Aliyat Neshama V'Kiva. Got to look up his name again. 1 second. Where am I? Here we go. Akiva Moshe ben Reuven and Chasha Shifra Halevi, Akiva Goldberg, should have Aliyat Neshama and the Refuah Shlema to Aun ben Chana Liba, and everybody needs a refuah and parnasa and a shidduch and an easy birth, Be'ezat Hashem, healthy mother, healthy baby, and healthy father, and all in the merit of learning from Rabbeinu Rabbi Nachman, that apparently you can find Rav Cheshen's father, Rabbi Binyamin Zev Cheshen. He has lessons somebody put up on YouTube. And Hashem was the video boy. And he said, I showed him the videos. He's like, I took that video. So his father, completely Haredi, I mean, looks, Me'er Sharim. He says, Rabbeinu. He liked to use the Sephardi, Rabbeinu. So, in the merit of Rabbeinu, Be'ezat Hashem. Okay. לאחר שביאר באריכות כיצד על ידי תשובה. So I should just remind us where we are in the lesson. Alice is joining us. Left Israel, but Israel hasn't left her. Bezat Hashem. And Bezat Hashem, you're married to come back here soon and stick around. With all the Jews with Mashiach Tzidkenu. So the lesson, we started off with Tikub B'chodesh Tiku b'shofar, what was it? Where is the beginning? Tiku b'chodesh shofar b'keser yom chagenu, talking about Elul and blowing the shofar. And then it starts off, Ha'ikar shekol Torah v'mitzvot hu ha'emunah. What is the point of all of Torah and mitzvot is emunah. And that's what this entire lesson is about. It talks about emunah. It talks about where to find emunah, where to find answers to your questions. The answers to the questions you get from the tzaddik, you get it from asking yourself by asking your heart, you get it from davening to Hashem. But how do we really have emunah? We get to the place where we see Hashem in the world all the time. And sometimes it's very hard to do. He gives a lot of advice along the way, and we're going to have some more of that advice coming up right now. What we learned last week was that a person has to serve Hashem with simplicity, to take all of their sophistication, throw it away, and serve Hashem like a simple person. Which, you want to have emunah, that's how you have to have emunah. So, I'm going to tell a story at the end, and that really relates to the lesson here. And you'll see in the story, there's a couple there that has to have emunah. Emunah means that even though I can't understand why and how Hashem is doing things, I believe that Hashem is Hazan Umfarnes Lakol, is the one who provides sustenance and livelihood for everything. And just like when a baby is born, its sustenance is born with it, meaning that a mother can breastfeed. Most mothers can breastfeed. I'm assuming most animals can breastfeed. And so the baby is born and then has its parnasa. So too, all of us have our parnasa in one way or another, not always in the way that we want it to be. And that's where the emunah comes from. So now he's going to make a big overview of many of the sections that I skipped over. לאחר שבאר באריכות כיצד על ידי הישיבה של הרב ותלמידיו נעשים כל התיקונים. So he brought this idea of the yeshiva, of the gathering, of sitting and learning, a rabbi and his students coming to Uman for Rosh Hashanah, Hasidim getting together, coming together and learning lessons like this. מתיקון האמונה עד תיקון המוחין, תפילין וכולי כנ"ל. And then he talked about, so what are we trying to do? We're trying to restore our consciousness of Hashem in the world. One of the ways of doing that is being in shul, is putting on tefillin, could be lighting candles Friday night for women, davening by the tzaddik, all these ways of connecting with Hashem. There was a person who did a treatment that I'm davening for, and the treatment is helping, and the doctor said, the treatment is helping, and it's not muvan me'elav, it's not a given that this treatment would work. And I reminded the person that me and many other people are davening for this person. So that the fact that the doctor said this treatment doesn't work for everyone, it's working for that person, I take that as a proof that the davening is doing its job. Now, you can't take it as an opposite proof, because they say, so I'm davening and the person is taking the treatment and the treatment is not working, so my davening is not working. No, it means that you just have to keep davening until maybe it's another treatment, until something else. Bezat Hashem. So that's the idea of the yeshiva, of getting together, of having consciousness of Hashem in the world, and this is fixing emunah, and this is fixing the consciousness that we have in tefillin. יבאר עתה כיצד נעשה על ידם התיקון האחרון של פגם המרכבה הנזכר לעיל, which we also didn't discuss, but we can understand from here. Now he's going to explain how this comes about, the final fixing of pgam hamerkava. So we know the merkava is from the vision of Yechezkel, where he saw a chariot, and he saw there was a man, and there was an animal, and different animals, and we have a description of it, and the avot, the forefathers, and I'm guessing the mahot, the mothers as well. The four mothers, even though it wasn't 4 and 4, it means 4 F-O-R-E, the Zchut Avot, the merit of our ancestors. They were guided in the way of a Merkava, in the way of a chariot. And how does a chariot work? This is the chariot, and the horse is pulling it. Wherever the horse pulls it, the chariot goes. The chariot doesn't have any free will. They experienced a connection with Hashem on such a high level that they basically didn't have free will, although they did have free will. And so, Pagam HaMerkava means we are damaging our ability to serve Hashem like a chariot. Meaning that Hashem takes us this way, we go that way. Hashem takes us this way, we go that way. And now he's going to explain how to fix that. Shemisham noflim avot nefulot b'bchinat chatim besoro. So this is also a section that I skipped. That from there comes about fallen loves that that's connected to, I don't know, is the door locked? Is the door locked? Yeah. Oh, sorry. Come on in. Haba me'ivut mishpat. Just waiting for them to come in. Let's see what you brought this week. Drum roll. You did it. You did it. I'm so proud of you. Koach.
Well, last time you said 11, part 2, and there's no part 2 to 11.
15.
And so that's why I grabbed 7 was because 7 had a part 2.
And we're starting off. Tzarich afilo leitnaheg. Okay. Let me find it for you so you're in the right place. This is A. This is. Well, I better find it quickly because I don't. Seriously. 15B, 15C. There it is. That's where we're going to be, right here. It may be in just a second. So he's going to talk about Ivut HaMishpat. Now, Ivut is distortion, and Mishpat is a judgment. And this is, where does our lack of faith come from? A feeling of Ivut HaMishpat. Meaning, I was supposed to get this, and I didn't. This person is evil. They don't deserve that. Why does this evil person get something good, while the good person gets something bad? That's Ivut HaMishpat. Or in the court system, Ivut HaMishpat would be a judge being bribed, for example. Well, of course, you can't bribe Hashem, and that's what we're going to learn about. וזאת על ידי שמסלק לגמרי את המוחין שהשיגו בלימוד הישיבה. And this is when a person takes the learning, the consciousness that they achieved in the time that they're learning in the yeshiva, ועובד את השם מאהבה כל כך עד שזוכה להשיג גם מה שנראה עיוות המשפט. That a person takes their intellectual understanding of the world, even their halachic understanding of the world, tosses it aside, reaches a place of such an intense, fiery love for Hashem that they can serve Hashem with a full heart, even when they think that the world is not running the way that they think that it should, which is defining Ivut HaMishpat. Now we're starting here. V'tzarich. And there's the oter, so there's additional stuff that you don't have there, but it'll all come together. וצריך לא רק לסלק חוכמתו בשעת עשיית המצוות המעשיות. The person doesn't have to just toss aside their sophistication in the time of doing actual mitzvot, practical mitzvot, אלא אפילו להתנהג ולעשות דברים שנראה כמשוגע. כחסר דעת בשביל עבודת Hashem. But a person has to behave and to do things that seem crazy, that lacking da'at, meaning lacking common sense, Bishvil avodat Hashem, in order to serve Hashem. Kagon dvarim shelo mikvodo haya liitbazot aleim. Like things beneath the person's honor, that they would be humiliated by them. Avad bishvil ha-mitzvah u'aseh ken. But for doing a mitzvah, the person's willing to do this. B'bchinat hakatuv, as it's written, and he brings a quote from Mishlei, Be'ahavata tishge tamid. You will be insane with love of her always. Meaning, so now this is one of the things that Rabbi Nachman likes to do, in love of her, meaning in the simple sense, like everybody, whether you're, whatever sexual, whatever it's called, orientation you have, everybody falls in love with someone or something at some point. So everybody knows what it is to be mad in love with another person. He says we want to reach that place of being mad in love with Hashem to the point where we would even do things that might humiliate us. So the first thing that came to mind is there's a story, and I don't remember, maybe you'll remember the story, or somebody watching, that there was a guy who was a Talmid Chacham, and his wife tells him to take out the garbage, and he says, it's written in the Shulchan Aruch that a Talmid Chacham is not supposed to deal with garbage, so I don't want to take it out. And she says, nonsense, take out the garbage. So he takes out the garbage, but he's upset. So he goes to his rabbi, and he says, isn't it written in the Shulchan Aruch that a Talmid Chacham is not supposed to take out the garbage? And he said, yes. And he said, well, my wife asked me to take out the garbage, and I don't want to take out the garbage. He said, you're right. So he comes home, he's very happy. He said, just so you know, the rabbi said I don't have to take out the garbage. She's not very happy with it. In the morning, the garbage is sitting outside the door. The Rosh Hashiva, the rabbi, comes and takes out the garbage. And the Talmid Chacham, the student, he sees his rabbi taking out his garbage. He says, what are you doing? He said, it says in the Shulchan Aruch that you don't have to take out the garbage if you're a Talmid Chacham. He said, since I'm not a Talmid Chacham, I can take out the garbage. So that's one example of doing a mitzvah that seems like it's beneath your honor, that it might humiliate you. Something else, something else would be, for example, leading davening. Like if somebody says to you, hey, you want to lead mincha. Now, if you don't know the davening at all, then you shouldn't be leading the davening. But let's say you're just nervous and you're worried, because I can tell you, I've led the davening for many, many, many years. And my biggest fear for the first many years of doing it is, what is everybody going to think? It's the same rejection that you feel when you want to ask somebody out on a date. I don't know, Ari maybe doesn't feel it. Ari is like a stone wall. But when I was young and I used to ask girls out, my biggest fear was rejection. And asking a wealthy person to help you with a business connection, that type of thing, that's also a type of fear. And leading the davening has the same fear. You're like, everybody's going to hear me and I'll make a mistake and I'll be so embarrassed. You want to do a mitzvah like that, like a mishugah, like a crazy person. There's a story that I've told, I'll just mention, that whenever I see somebody, I ask somebody in shul to lead mincha, at Ma'ayanot, for example, and they're like, oh, no, I can't do it. And like, don't worry, nobody pays attention. You just say whatever you want and nobody's going to even notice. And I stand next to them usually if they're really nervous, and they'll make a mistake and I'll say, no one heard. Don't worry, just keep going. And they do, and that's really what it is, not to be scared. But there's also doing a mitzvah like a meshugah, like a crazy person. So there's a story that I've told before, and it turned out that I told this to somebody yesterday. The person needed to hear the story. That there was a guy in Auschwitz who wanted to light a Chanukiah. Of course, there were no Hanukkah menorahs in Auschwitz and no way to get anything, but somehow he got a little bit of a piece of potato peel and he got a little bit of grease from one of the machines in the factory, and somehow he was able to light a little, I guess he took a strand from his clothes, and somehow he lit it, and he lit the first night of Hanukkah. And one of the Nazis sees there's a light in one of the barracks. He goes, he sees this little, thin, frail Jew standing in front of his Chanukiah and beats him till he's bloody, passed out on the floor. Because that'll take care of you and your stupid Jewish rituals. The next night, somehow this Jew finds the strength to get up. He's got another peel. He's got another wick. He's got a little bit of grease. And he lights the menorah. And the Nazi comes in and beats him again. And everyone in the barracks is like, you're going to get yourself killed by doing this. And the third night, he somehow pulls himself up and lights the Chanukiah. That's doing a mitzvah like a meshugah. Now, we could debate whether that was a smart decision or not. I don't know. And it's not the point. The point is, where does that strength to do a mitzvah come from? That's doing a mitzvah like a meshugah. Aval b'shvil mitzvot hu oseh ken. B'bchinat hakatuv, as we said, you'll be insane with love of her always. Her meaning a person, meaning Hashem, meaning ahava, love meaning mitzvot. שבשביל אהבת השם צריכים לעשות דברים הנראים כשיגעון. Because in order to love Hashem, you have to sometimes do things that appear like they're crazy. כדי לעשות מצוותיו ורצונו יתברך. To do, for example, his mitzvot and his will. And, Seneca, you heard of Seneca, I mentioned Seneca. He was a Roman advisor to Caesar's. He was an advisor to Nero, who was apparently insane and did crazy things. And there's stories that he converted to Judaism, whether he did or not, I don't know. But Seneca, his writings are still around. You can find them online. And he's a Roman philosopher. He didn't like the Jews. And one of the things that he said about us is how foolish we are to not work 7 days a week. Now, of course, back then there was no supermarket to go to. If you didn't have animals and find food, you didn't live. So people, just to be alive, was you were working 10, 16 hours a day just to have food. So he said, you guys are crazy. You're taking a day off of taking care of yourselves? That doesn't make any sense. And what's the Jewish answer to Seneca? Well, you might be right from a Roman point of view, but from a Jewish point of view, we're crazy for Hashem, and we're going to take a day off of work and keep Shabbos. And he thought it was so insane that he said the Jews are absolutely crazy. And that's exactly what Rabbi Nachman is saying. You have to be crazy for doing the mitzvot. Now, we live in a place where there's crazy people. I'm sure in every place there's crazy people, but especially in Nachlaot.
No.
Lots of crazy people. No? You've never met any?
No, never. Not one.
How do you know you're not one?
Because I haven't met one.
Exactly. Takes one to know one. I haven't met one. Anyhow, I've met plenty of crazy people. I'm not saying you're one of them. And there's crazy and there's crazy. So there's crazy. There's crazy for Hashem. I think of the guys on the Nanach trucks. So whenever the trucks drive by, I dance a little bit.
Those are vans.
Vans, okay. The vans, the Nanach vans. I dance a little bit with them because I really appreciate what they're doing. But you see, so I'm sure some of them are a little crazy, but that's like saying, I'm going to serve Hashem on a crazy level. But it also means, let's say it's Sukkot. This has happened to me. And I've spent so much money on all the holidays, and now I have to buy a lulav and etrog, and I have to buy 4 of them, because everyone in the family needs one, and the boys need one, the ladies need one, and I need one. And where's all this money going to come from? And you just put it out like a crazy person, and you do what you have to. You buy what you have to for the Seder, you buy what you have to for Rosh Hashanah, and you just do it. That's serving Hashem k'meshugah. כי צריכים להתגלגל בכל מיני רפס וטיט. A person has to roll around in mud and tar, and dirty things, roll around the ground. בשביל להחזיר את ישראל בתשובה, in order to return the Jewish people with תשובה, כגון ללכלך את עצמו בשפיר וסילה. I don't know, there's no vowels here, so I don't know what it is. היינו מקומות הטומאה. That is that you have to get yourself sometimes dirty in impure places. And I'm not sure what the intention is there. כדי לטהר את ישראל לאביהם שבשמיים. In order to, so let's say you have a friend that's not in a good place. So he's saying if you're strong enough, you go to that not good place in order to help the person to do tshuva. That's what he's talking about there. Like you'll see sometimes, there's people that go to Kikar Tzion and help the American teenage kids that come here on programs and end up stoned on drugs in Kikar Tzion. That's the known place where all the teenagers hang out, there in the central bus station. And so you'll have people that they say, okay, my shlichut is to go out to these teenagers. Now you would think if you're a holy person, that's not where you belong. So as long as you're not being drawn into those things yourself, then you can go and help people there. וכל זה בשביל עבודת השם ומצוותיו יתברך. And all of this is for serving Hashem and for doing His mitzvot. ולאו דווקא בשביל מצווה ממש, and not always necessarily for a mitzvah literally, אלא כל דבר שיש בו רצון השם יתברך, rather than anything that Hashem's will would include, כגון קיום מנהגי ישראל. For example, keeping traditions of the Jewish people, or traditions of your community amongst the Jewish people. Or something else, I'm sure that pretty much everything is included in a mitzvah in one way or another, but to do those things a little bit like a crazy person. Gam kein nikra mitzvah. Also the minhagim, the customs or traditions are also called mitzvah. Ki yesh taryag mitzvot. There's 613 mitzvot. Ve'elo taryag mitzvot yesh lehem anafim rabim. These 613 mitzvot have many branches. V'chol devar sheyesh b'ratzon Hashem yitbarach, and everything that has Hashem's will within it, she'osim bo nachat la'aviv shebashamayim, that gives pleasure to our Father that's in heaven, hu b'chinat mitzvah. This is related to a mitzvah, has an aspect of a mitzvah. V'tzarich legalgel atzmo b'chol minei refesh, v'tit, kedei la'asot eze ratzon v'nachat la'Hashem yitbarach. And sometimes a person has to roll around in the mud and the dirt in order to do a little bit of Hashem's will and to give Hashem pleasure in heaven. And you can relate this to your own parents, going out of your way to do something for your parents and to give them nachat, to give them joy. Same thing for Hashem. ואזי כשאהבתו חזקה כל כך להשם יתברך, and then when a person's love of Hashem is so strong, עד שמסלק כל חוכמתו ומשליך עצמו לרפש וטיט בשביל עבודתו יתברך, a person's love of Hashem is so strong that they'll even take their intellect and toss it aside and roll around in the dirt and the mud in order to serve Hashem. And you understand what this means. It means that, like on an intellectual level, you would say, I'm not able to do this. Like, I can't get to shul every morning. Now, I don't have a problem getting to shul in the morning, usually. I did have, the other day I had this thought, I'm so tired, I'm always tired. Hashem, give me one morning, I'll daven at home. Just one morning. How bad could it be? I haven't missed shul in 25 years. One morning. And so I said, okay, that morning I'm staying in shul, and I'll just call them and tell them I'm not coming because I usually lead the minyan in the shul. And it's 7 in the morning, and I'm like, I'm staying in bed. And by 7:10 I was up. I was like, this is pure Yetzer Hara. This is just the evil inclination. If I really want to sleep, I'll sleep after the minyan. Just make it to shul, so I drag myself to shul. Now you might have to drag yourself to shul like a crazy person. You might come while you're buttoning up your shirt, still drinking a cup of coffee, Your tefillin are not even fully in the bag, and you're just schlepping yourself to shul. You get there, throw everything on the table, and just put on everything and start davening. And daven like a mishuga as well. You're like, I don't have any energy, but I'm davening anyhow. That's what it means to serve Hashem k'mishuga. Not to be an idiot, obviously, not to do stupid things. Also, I mention Purim all the time. Purim, the point is not to get drunk. The point is that you should free yourself of your inhibitions, be able to serve Hashem with true joy. And a person that really works on themselves can do that without alcohol. Get to the same place that you get when you're absolutely plastered, but do it from a place of being crazy for Hashem. That is kind of the goal of Purim, to reach that place, but then to reach that place of Avat Yisrael, of loving your fellow Jew, to really be able to see your fellow Jew and love them like you're drunk out of your mind. But the alcohol is just there if you haven't done the work. So you can get drunk. You're not supposed to get drunk. You can drink a little bit. But the point is to bring you to this place of total Avat Yisrael. We want to get to the place where we're serving Hashem a little bit like we're drunk, but not in a stupid way. Okay. והאזי כשאהבתה חזקה כל כך. להשם יתברך, we said that כדי לעשות איזה נחת, to give Hashem some pleasure, you're able to take your intellect and toss it aside, כשמשליך כל כך את המוחין, אדרבה וטובה למוחין. So you would think, well, I don't want to serve Hashem like a crazy person. I'm an intellect, I'm an intelligent person. I have to serve Hashem with my intelligence. He says, no. When you take your intelligence and you toss it aside and serve Hashem, just because you're doing it from a place of love and Hashem, this is good for your intellect. You can understand things that are even beyond your intellectual ability. Mashigram Moshe shehu tachlit hadat v'amochin b'chayav lo yisig. What Moshe, who is the ultimate level of understanding the world and being connected to Hashem, even he couldn't reach that level. Hainu b'chinata hasheila. That is connected to the question, Madua tzaddik v'ra lo, v'rasha v'tov lo. Why is there a tzaddik and things go bad in his life? And why is there an evil person and things go good in his life? This was a question that Moshe asked Hashem, and Moshe could not understand this in this world. He could only understand it shemistalek, when he passed away, when he left this world. Now you see how Rabbi Nachman is playing with the words. He says, Ksha'ata misalek et da'atcha. When you, instead of pass away, you take your consciousness and toss it aside, you can reach the level that Moshe had when he died, but still while you're alive. Because you reach a place where you're not using your intellect. Because if we look at a righteous person that's suffering, and we look at an evil person that's prospering, according to our intellect, we're saying that this is ivut mishpat. This is a distortion of justice. Because this looks like a distortion of justice, God forbid. That even Moshe in his lifetime was not able to intellectually understand why Hashem could make an evil person prosper while a righteous person suffers. Hainu gam ksha-moach b'shlemut ve'eino ustalek. Even when a person reaches the highest intellectual level, but they don't toss that aside in order to serve Hashem. Shezeh b'chinat Moshe b'chayav. This is the aspect of Moshe when he was alive in this world. Ki istalkut ha'mochim b'chinat shena. We have an aspect of this when we sleep. That's when our intellect, we toss our intellect away, right? Because we know in our dreams all kinds of crazy things can happen, that on an intellectual level we know that it's not true. Zeh b'chinat istalkut Moshe. This is the level of Moshe that he reached when he left this world. The kiyum hamochin, ke'et she'amochim kayamim ve'enam nisakim. So when we're completely plugged into how the world is, reality, and the only way that we see the world is reality, and we're not able to get beyond that, this is connected to like Moshe in his lifetime. And if you're going to be on that level, you're never going to be able to understand, even imagine how Hashem could do something that you see as unjust and be okay with it. That is how you could ever be okay with seeing a righteous person suffering and an evil person prospering. So I'll give you an example. Whenever big issues like global warming, Iranian nuclear missiles, protests in Tel Aviv, anything like that, it seems to me like just beyond my ability to understand it, or whatever. I understand what I can, but beyond my ability to influence it, I just say, Hashem is not going to make a mistake. And get on with my life. Somebody who becomes obsessed with global warming, for example, if you take a chassid, a religious Jew, and there aren't very many of them, as far as I've seen, that are obsessed with global warming. But you take somebody...
have a brain.
That's, how people see the world in different ways. But if you're obsessed with global warming, like if it's an academic pursuit, okay, I can understand. I studied Islamic history. I didn't want to become a Muslim. It was an academic subject, that's what I studied. They're studying environmental stuff, so I study environmental stuff. But if your whole life is wrapped up around it, you forget that Hashem is running the world. And then you can only reach the level of Moshe b'chayav. You can only reach the level of Moshe in his lifetime. You want to be able to understand, how could Hashem make global warming? I mean, you might not be able to understand why, but you can understand that. You could say, yeah, Hashem can make global warming. Whether it really is global warming or not, whatever, it's not even the point. If you say Hashem can do that, then you're okay. If you say, I can't live with this, then you're restricting yourself in your consciousness, and you need to reach the level of serving Hashem like a crazy person. And this goes for everything. So let's take a person who doesn't have any money. How do you serve Hashem with joy? You say, Hashem, I don't have any money, but I know you're running the world and I'm not going to worry about it. A person, God forbid, who's sick, the same thing, Shelo Nida. That they have to be able to say to Hashem, yes, you sent me this affliction, but I'm still going to serve you with joy. The only way you can do that is going beyond your intellect. And if the goal of this lesson is to understand how all of the Torah mitzvot is in order to have emunah, to have faith in Hashem, in order to have faith in Hashem, you have to go beyond your intellect. If you stay in reality, you will only always be in reality. And we are in reality. I'm not saying I got a parking ticket a couple of days ago and I have to fight the parking ticket. So I'm not going to say, oh, I'm beyond reality, so I'm not going to fill in the form. That's stupid. We're talking about you fill in the form, and let's say I get charged the full amount, and I don't have the amount. I say to Hashem, help me to please pay the fine. It's turning to Hashem, being able to do mitzvot beyond your intellect. Aval, al yedei she'ahavato, chazaka kol kach le'Hashem yitbarach, because a person's love is so strong for Hashem, shemashlich u'megalgel atzmo berefesh v'tit b'shvil avodato yitbarach, the person is willing to roll around in the mud, or roll around in the snow, or jump in the water, or do whatever kind of, seemingly crazy thing in order to serve Hashem. V'oseh avdut ke'eved mamish b'shvil avodato yitbarach, and a person serves Hashem truly like a slave. That the slave is told to do something, they do something. If Hashem says that on Rosh Hashanah, you need to hear the shofar. Even if you sleep until 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you realize you have to find somebody who will blow the shofar, so you run and find the shofar. Why? Because you're serving Hashem like a servant. Hashem said this is the mitzvah, you do the mitzvah. Azai zoche la'asig gam ma shebchinat Moshe b'chayav, dahaynu ba'et kiyum hamochin, ve'ein nicholim la'asig. Okay, let's continue. Then the person merits to the person, and when you're on the level of Eved, you're on the level of being a servant, a slave, you're able to grasp this level of understanding Hashem like Moshe in his lifetime, that is, while he still had his consciousness. Ein nicholim la'asig, dahainu she'elat tzaddik, v'ralo, v'rasha, v'tov lo, shu b'chinat ivut. המשפט לכאורה, אבל שמשיג ומבין זאת, גם עניין זה נהפך למשפט מתוקן. So let's go back. So there's the stuff that we can understand on an intellectual level, but when we go beyond that intellectual level, we say that Hashem is running the world, and we truly understand and believe that Hashem is running the world, then we can reach the aspect of understanding something that seems like a distortion of justice. For example, the tzaddik that's suffering and the rasha that's prospering. When you bring this into your own life, how come this is happening to me and how come that is happening to me? When you do that, then you can reach a level of understanding Hashem even in the things that you don't understand in your own life. But when a person understands and grasps this, gam inyan ze nehafach lemishpat metukan. This thing turns into a fixed, a repaired judgment. V'az nit kanet merkava ha'elyona. And then a person becomes a supernal chariot. Okay, we're going to do just a little bit more. So there's a note here. When a person understands this, נראה שעיקר וההשגה וההבנה היא שמרוב שאוהב את ישראל ומקבל בתמימות ופשיטות כל מה שהשם עושה. It seems that the main way of grasping and understanding this is that from such a great amount of love for Hashem, a person accepts with simplicity and innocence everything that Hashem does. V'lo kasher lo shum kushia al Hashem yitbarach. The person doesn't have any questions about Hashem's behavior. V'afilo shela'achar yesh kushiyot ke'ele madua tzadik ra lo v'chulei. And even though afterwards a person might have a question like, how can Hashem make a righteous person suffer and so on? Zeh ha'ohev, this, the one that loves Hashem, lo kasher lo klum. They don't have questions on anything. Ki batuach hu b'Hashem, because a person is so confident in Hashem, shebevadai eino oseh shum ivut bishpat. Hashem for sure does not distort justice. Ubevadai be'emet ma'aseh Hashem tov af she'eino mevin zot. And the person will know that whatever Hashem is doing is good, even if the person doesn't understand that. Klomar, that is to say, Ikar ha'avana v'hasaga shemevin u'masig et ha'emet she'en makom lebnei adam lish'on shum she'ela al Hashem yitbarach. That a person, the main understanding and grasping is that a person understands and fully grasps intellectually that the truth is that there's no place for human beings to ask any question about Hashem whatsoever. So that's a place that we want to reach. I'm just going to read the lines of the introduction to the next paragraph, then I'm going to tell the story, and we're going to finish for tonight. So this is where we're going to continue next week. Yiva'er shebe'amet mibchinat bechinot shel sod hanhagat Hashem. He's going to explain that the truth is that the aspects of the secret of Hashem's behavior, shekalape chutz hein nirot ki yivut mishpat, that on the outside it seems like Hashem is distorting justice. Lo ak she'eved yachol la'asig. This is a level that not just a servant, a slave can grasp. Ela afilu ben lo yachol la'asig. So the servant can't understand it, and even the son can't understand it. right? Because we're using the example of the king. King has servants and the king has sons. The servant serves Hashem on a certain level, and the son serves Hashem on a certain level. The king, meaning. Ulam ben haoseh la'aviv hamelech ma'aseh eved. But when the son serves Hashem like a slave, shazo b'chinat siluk hamochin, that this is connected to tossing your intellect away, hu kein yachol la'asik, then a person can grasp, shazeu ginzaya hamanka, that this is the pride, the treasury of the king, masha afinu Moshe b'chayav lo yasik, what even Moshe in his lifetime was not able to understand. When you serve Hashem on the level of a son that's serving the king as a slave, then you can reach the level of understanding things that even Moshe in his lifetime couldn't understand. Meaning for our own lives, meaning for having emunah in Hashem. Okay. Oh, you did very well for 50 minutes. No, I mean, it went fast for me. It's not easy to stay awake, I know, because I told you I have the same problem in the morning. Boy, it's really hard in the morning. That's it, I'll sleep well. But, okay, story about Eliyahu Navi, and this is connected to what we were learning tonight. So, Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, who's one of the Amoraim, came, he sees Eliyahu Navi in the marketplace, and he says, hey, Eliyahu Navi, Elijah the prophet, I want to join you for a couple of days and see what you do. And he said, you can't. And he said, why not? He said, because you're going to see things that your human mind cannot understand. And you'll get angry, and you'll distract me. I got work to do. I can't be distracted by you. So he said, and if I promise you that even if I see things that I don't understand, I won't say anything. He said, that's the t'nai, that's the condition. You don't say anything, you can continue going around with me. You say something, we're done. He says, okay, deal. So the first place they go is this old, rundown hut in the middle of the forest, and there's a little thin cow in the back, and there's this old couple living there together. And they see Eliyahu Navi and Rabbi Yoshua coming down the path. And the wife says to her husband, we have guests. We haven't had guests in such a long time. They welcome them in. They give them a few scraps of bread, whatever they had left, a little bit of milk from the cow, which is how they made their living. They're very meager living. And they're a really old couple. They have a hard time getting around and doing the work that they have to do. They sleep on straw mats. They prepare some straw mats for the two rabbis, Eliyahu Navi and Rabbi Yoshua. They spend the night. In the morning, they thank the couple. And as they're walking out, Eliyahu Navi turns to the cow. And he says, Hashem, please kill the cow. And the cow goes, and falls over dead. And Rabbi Yoshua is looking at this. He says, this couple, they're old. They have nothing. They have a cow. You killed their cow. We took all their food. They have no way of making a living. But Eliyahu Navi looks at him. He says, I told you, don't say a word. Now, Rabbi Yeshua didn't say anything, but he's thinking all this. Don't say a word. So, promise is a promise. They keep going. They're walking and walking and walking for a day or so. They come across this huge mansion. And as they're coming in, there's a grand wall in front, but there's a little crack in the wall. And Eliyahu looks at the crack. They go to the mansion, they bang on the door, the servant comes, and they say, listen, we'd like to spend the night here, we're travelers. And they're looking at this huge mansion, and the servant says, listen, you can sleep on the floor, but we're not going to give you a room, we're not giving you any food, we're not giving you anything. They said, fine, we'll sleep on the floor. They sleep on the floor, not a very nice thing considering what this guy has. And as they're leaving, Eliyahu Navi sees that the wall had fallen over overnight. And he says, Hashem, fix the wall. And stone by stone, the wall repairs itself, the little crack seals itself. And Rabbi Yeshua is looking at this. I'll join this. Rabbi Yeshua is looking at this and he's like, this guy was so inhospitable to us. The couple that was nice to us, he killed their cow. This guy who's a jerk, you fix his wall. Don't say a word. So they continue walking, and they come to a town with a beautiful shul. And the custom in those days, there were a lot of Jewish travelers. People a lot of times walked, or they would hitch a ride on a wagon, and they would stay in the shul, usually in the women's section. Of course, only overnight. In the morning, they get up and daven shachrit, and they were gone. Or there would be like a shelter or something like that in the community. Or people would invite you to come to their house and sleep there. So they're davening in this magnificent, beautiful shul. Clearly a wealthy community, and not a single person invites them to sleep anywhere, and they end up sleeping on the benches in the women's section. And in the morning, after they finish davening shachrit, Eliyahu Navi says, Hashem, this should be a community of leaders. You know, it's funny, all these programs, everything is a leadership program. You notice that? You know, this leadership and that leadership, anything in English has to be a leadership program. So he says, everyone here should be a leader. This is a community that should be leaders. And Rabbi Yeshua is thinking, this is the community that should be leaders? They're all a bunch of morons. Look at how they treated us. They go to another shul the next day. Not such a nice shul. People are really nice to them. A couple of people invite them to their homes. They spend the night there. In the morning, they daven shachrit. And Eliyahu Navi blesses the shul that they should only one of them should be a leader. So now Rabbi Yeshua says, okay, I'm breaking my oath. I can't take it anymore. I got to know what's going on. So Eliyahu Navi says, fine, I'll tell you, but now you can't go one more step with me. He said, okay, let's start with the old couple. How could you kill their cow? They were so nice to us. He said, I saw in heaven that the wife was going to die. And so I asked Hashem to kill the cow instead of killing her, and give them a few more years together. He said, don't worry about their parnasa. Hashem provides parnasa, and will provide parnasa for them. Which is what I said at the beginning of the lesson. There'll be a couple, but they get blessed from Eliyahu Navi. I don't think they have to worry. He says, okay, fine. We went to the wealthy guy. He made us sleep on the floor, and his wall collapsed overnight, and you fixed his wall. Now, why would you do this guy a favor? He said, under his wall was a great treasure that had been buried many 100 years before. If he fixed the wall, he would have found the treasure. Since he treated us so poorly, he didn't deserve to find the treasure, so I fixed his wall. Is it okay? What about the fancy shul, where you think that everyone there should be a leader? He said, a community that everyone's a leader suffers. So the other shul that was nice to us, I blessed them that only one should be a leader, and that's a community that will prosper. He said, now that you've been around with me for a few days, go and teach the Jewish people the ways of Hashem, and don't let them give up when they see the wicked prosper or the righteous suffer, because while we judge with our eyes, Hashem rules the world with justice and mercy. And at that moment, Eliyahu Navi disappeared. So you see, here's a cute story. And we look at our lives and we say, how can it be that way? Rabbi Nachman is saying, you're not going to have Eliyahu Navi to explain everything to you. Know that Hashem is running the world the way it's supposed to be. And if that means that you need to serve Hashem like a crazy person would say, I don't care that I don't understand why Hashem is making me suffer. I'm going to continue to serve Hashem even stronger. Like the guy lighting the Chanukiah. Every time he got beat down, he got up and lit it again. That's how we have to serve Hashem. And that's what he's trying to teach us here. And that's why the whole Torah and mitzvot is coming to teach us emunah, which is why our soul came into this world in the first place. So Yeshar Koach, everyone. We'll sing a little nigun. Continue next week with Hashem. La 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 la.